Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick, spiritual life coach and your host of Her Conversations Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on earth today, claiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. And I'm excited to just take a moment to speak about Higher Energetic Resonance offers. This week, freshly launched, is Your Awakened Voice. And this is a self-led course for you to release the power of your voice. Perhaps you want to launch a podcast or speak in public or confidently express yourself in your daily life, and you still feel stuck in your stories or fears about your voice. This course will support you to clear any energetic blockages, to release any disempowering beliefs that you have around your voice and unlock the hidden potential of your voice. Now more than ever, the world needs people in their true voice, and Your Awakened Voice is here to assist with the awakening of your voice. There are more details about this if you follow the link in the show notes. Also, if you haven't listened already, do follow the links in the show notes for Her Inspirations, which is the podcast, the sister podcast to this title, Her Conversations. Each episode of Her Inspirations is an exploration of things that we encounter as we embark on our spiritual and awakening journeys. If you haven't already, please do consider to join the mailing list, where you'll receive additional meditation and journaling inspiration notes, and also links to any relevant additional resources, highlights and exclusives. Again, the link's in the show notes for that. And you'll also receive the Embody Higher Energetic Resonance course, where you feel into your vision physically, emotionally and spiritually and start to take on your dreams. My guest this week is Emma Turton. She is a leading international medical intuitive, founder and director of the Medical Intuition School, where she teaches medical intuition as a compass for life. And she has created a world-class IICT-approved professional medical intuition practitioner training certification course. During our conversation, Emma shares about her own journey to wellness and the discovery of her own natural ability to see inside her clients and highlight when they're out of alignment. She also talks about how our beliefs affect our health and how we can tap into our intuition to secure our future wellness. So as always, I begin by asking my guests, Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
Oh, I feel that higher energetic resonance when I'm moving, when I'm immersed in water, when I'm out in my garden, putting my hands in the soil and feeling surrounded by nature. And so, that can be when I'm out for a walk in the bushland that's nearby, the forest that's nearby, or it can be when I'm out, just before this call, I was out quickly putting some seedlings in my front yard that were looking a bit dry and thirsty. So I thought, better get you in the ground. And that for me is me feeling that higher energetic resonance, feeling connected to my body, connected to earth, connected to spirit, all at the same time.
Beautiful. Love it. And before we go into our conversation, which I'm looking forward to, Emma, we've got so much to talk about, can you just share a little bit about your journey? How did you get to the point where you're doing the work that you're doing today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started my career as a health professional. I have a background as a physiotherapist, and I was working in the hospital system. I was getting increasingly unwell, not realizing just how highly sensitive I was and working in conventional health. I loved working with my clients, and I realized I needed to actually take a shift and an about face because I was getting so unwell. And during my 20s, I took a few different career shifts. I went down a few pathways, and I got to the point where I had so many health problems in my body that I'd seen all the specialists. I'd got a whole bunch of diagnoses of lifelong conditions that were incurable and a whole pile of medication, fistfuls of medication to take every day. And I was, getting increasingly desperate to try and fix what was going on in my body. And I found myself on my 29th birthday, woke up and just curled into a ball and cried. I didn't want to face the day. And I knew that when I got out of bed, I would be crippled, be walking like I was, turning 89 instead of 29, because I had so much arthritis in my feet and in my hands, in my knees, and my ankles. My joints were swollen and sore. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach constantly. I was always in pain, always in discomfort. I had all kinds of problems, from lung conditions, chronic lung problems, to skin problems, and I was just getting worse, as well as, digestive problems and even mental health problems as well. I was really struggling and really down, and I had 2 little children, and I knew that I needed to try and do something because none of the specialists knew what was wrong. And so I went down the path of self-discovery. I started to unpack everything and started to look at my life with really new eyes, because in that moment I kind of cracked open and had no other way forwards but to just go, hang on, what the hell's going on here? No one's got answers. I've got to find some. And so, I looked at my diet, I looked at my relationships, I looked at my choices, I looked at my career, I looked at everything with new eyes, and I chose again. And what I found was that every new choice I made highlighted to me how I had been choosing where I was at. And it was very confronting at the time, but choosing where I was at, and that was having a flow-on effect to my body. So every new choice I made in my life that seemed to not even be connected to health would have a flow-on effect to clear up some of my health problems. And I started to see that there were patterns here. And I started to, when I was working with clients as a physiotherapist and nutritionist, because by then I trained as a nutrition coach, because nutrition was huge for me as well, changing that part, because we get to choose what we put in our mouth every day, right? Every single meal is a choice. And that can have a really big impact on our health as well. And so I had retrained then, and I was seeing clients privately and realizing I was receiving information about these clients that I had no way of explaining, and that information was always exactly what was keeping them from healing. So, for instance, I remember having a client that came to me for, a diet protocol for high cholesterol, and I knew, without her having said, that it was her relationship with her ex-husband and her adult daughter that was causing the problem. She hadn't told me she had an ex-husband or an adult daughter that she was having problems with. And I didn't know what to do with this information. I was like, I don't feel like I can share this because I'm the physiotherapist, nutritionist. I shouldn't. Where is this even coming from? I don't really understand it. And so I realized, that's just one of so many examples. Every one of my clients that had a stubborn problem that wouldn't heal no matter what they did, every one of them, there was some other reason in their life they had that problem, and I knew it. And so I went on a journey to really dive deep into my intuition, to learn how to use it, because I realized I was getting intuitive information, because how else could I have known what was going on? And at that point, I didn't know what a medical intuitive was. Somebody actually said to me, "You realize you're a medical intuitive?" And I'm like, I don't know what that is. I need to go look that up. and then I realized, oh my God, that is exactly what I'm doing. And so I'd gone down this pathway of learning how to do normal intuitive readings, if that is such a thing. It's a normal intuitive reading, a standard reading, and I realized that I was already doing something really quite radically different within my sessions. And so I just stepped out of the spiritual closet, blew the door wide open, stepped fully into doing it full time, because it's the one thing that made a radical difference in people's lives. When they knew what was stopping their healing and chose differently and did things differently, the symptoms disappeared, sometimes in seconds, sometimes tumors would disappear overnight. Some of this was just amazing. And so that's how I got down that pathway. And I realized exactly what it was I was doing and how I was doing it, and started to teach it to others so they could do it too, because my books got so full that I had so many people on my waiting list that I needed to be able to refer to somebody who worked in the same way. And there was no one that I could find that worked the same way as me. and had the same approach to health. And so I started to train other practitioners in medical intuition to do what I do. And so that's what led me down this pathway. And because one of the jobs I had in there when I realized I couldn't go back into the hospital system because it just wasn't about health. It was about illness. I was a university lecturer for 8 years. I went to university and was teaching in the School of Physiotherapy there. And I learned how to create curriculum. I learned all of, teaching and learning and assessment. I did all of that while I was there. I went, it can't be for nothing. Oh, of course, I can create these courses to teach people how to do this because the world needs this. So many people need this. It's what's stopping them from healing. And so it was my journey with my health and then my cracking open with clients and realizing what was blocking their healing as well. That really led me down this pathway. And I managed to completely resolve all of my incurable health problems and don't take any medication now. I take a few like vitamins, but that's it. That's it. So all these things that I was told I'd have forever, not a thing anymore. And, if you look up any of these conditions, they're incurable. There's no known cure. There's no treatments apart from symptom medication. And I don't need any of those anymore because I don't have them anymore because I dealt with the reasons why they showed up. And that's the power of this work. So it's so freaking powerful when we work at it from that angle.
Yeah. So, and I agree with all of what you're saying, just having seen it, just kind of watching things and trying to understand. Obviously, like being a medical intuitive is not my work, but being an intuitive observer is being able to see things and also make connections with stuff. And it's questions that I've asked of people around me who had various different ailments, and just wondering whether if they were able to change their mind about why they had these things, or maybe to look at what they had from a different perspective, to try and understand where it was all coming from, that maybe they could have, and for the ones that are still with me, can experience a level of healing. But then to now tap into one of the posts that I saw recently on your social media was the reason that you're not healing is because part of you doesn't want to. And I like I shared with you beforehand, before we press record, I can see how that is both triggering, because obviously no one's like, why would I invite this pain on myself? Why do I want to put myself through all of these treatments that I'm going through as a result of these things? But also how empowering it can be when you realize actually the root and the cause and the root, whichever way you want to do it, is you. So as a result, if you've got the root cause in your hand and in your power, then you can twist and take the power back. That's like the most empowering statement there is, as opposed to having somebody telling you that it's incurable, which actually only ever means that we don't have the pills for what you got, or we don't have the pills to push the symptoms out the way long enough for you to believe that you're better until, the symptom of what we're giving you kind of turns up and we have to give you a bit more, and you turn into like this kind of toxic bag of cells until it's just too much for your body to cope. And then unfortunately, that's the end of your experience. But how do people receive that when you put that out there?
Usually gets mixed responses. I'm a highly sensitive person, and I'm deeply empathic and compassionate. I've been on my own health journey, and I work with people every day that are right at the coalface of trying to solve really, uncomfortable, tricky problems within their own bodies. And so I completely understand that it can be triggering. But what I mean by it is that there is a part of you that sometimes you can't see. Usually it's subconscious. Nobody really wants to be sick, or if they do, then that's actually their illness, right? It's usually subconscious. It's a part of you that isn't on board with healing. And when you find that part and work on that, then healing becomes far more easy and effortless for you. but it's not always easy to have that handed to you and go, oh, well, it's never your fault that you're unwell. I want to be really specific with that. It's never your fault. You're not being punished, and it's not, you haven't brought this on yourself, because I know these are some ways that some people say this, and that's absolutely not what I mean at all. But what it does mean is that there may be a part of it you're not seeing, and if you can find that part or work with someone who can help you find that part, which is the work I do every day, and so do all of the people that I've trained in the work that I do. And there's lots of people who can help you with that. That when you do the work on that root cause, on that reason why it showed up and why that part of you isn't safe, doesn't feel safe to heal, then you can calm it down, allow it to feel safe, and your symptoms can resolve really fast. And it's totally not your fault, but it is in your power to shift it. And if you don't know where to start, there are people who can help you to find that. And it's, it's not, when someone knows where to look, it's easy to do that work. It doesn't mean that it should be easy for you if you're working through a health problem and you've tried all of the things, because that feels like a slap in the face, right? If someone says it's easy to fix that, you should be able to do this yourself. It's in your power. It's like, well, great. That really helps me, right? So that's not helpful at all. But when you work with someone who knows where to look, it becomes easy. And even for ourselves, doing medical intuition for ourselves is often harder than doing it for somebody else. I can still bang my head against a wall when something comes up in my own body. And sometimes I will get one of my own practitioners and get them to support me and hold that space for me, for us to both work out what it is that I'm not wanting to see, that I'm not wanting to, the part of me that doesn't feel safe with resolving or healing.
Got it.
And then it's easy for me, because then it's like, oh, yeah, okay, of course it's that thing that's been nudging me and I've been not wanting to look at it, right? Because we're human. We don't want to look at the stuff that's hard for us to face, right? But when we do, everything changes.
Yeah. Everything
changes. And so we have so much power. We can radically change our physiology like that when we do this work. To the point, it blows my mind, some of the stuff that I've seen. I'm in awe of the human body and what it's capable of.
Because you see this over and over again, what I was writing down, because I wanted to remember, is there like a common thread? Do you find that there's a recurring reason, or that subconscious part of them is choosing to create that lack of health in that person's body?
Oh, yeah. So there are a number of recurring reasons, and it depends often on the condition and the part of the body as to what that recurring reason is, because they actually tie into those reasons. One of the recurring reasons is that not feeling safe, the part of you that feels like you don't know who you're going to be without that illness. You don't have the same identity that you may have had. If you've had an illness for 20 years, you may not know who you are without it. Another one that's a recurring reason can be that there is a secondary gain. And so a secondary gain is where there's something that you are getting that is serving you in some way by keeping that illness, by still having that illness. And that thing that you are getting could be more love, more support. It could be more attention. It could be that people are actually coming and doing things for you, dropping off casseroles and cleaning your house and taking your dog for a walk. And it could actually be that without that, without that illness, you don't get any of that support, and you feel deeply unsupported, and you've been deeply unsupported in your life up until that point of actually suddenly having that support. And so your subconscious mind is holding on. You're not consciously going, I'm going to stay sick so someone's going to walk my dog. Nobody does that. But subconsciously, there's a part of your energy that's holding on to your body, staying that way, so that you can continue to get that support, because you feel scared that you will not be supported if you let it go. And when you work on that fear and changing the way you communicate, changing the way you choose in your relationships, changing how people are around you and what you're willing to do, and create those boundaries around how much you're supporting everyone else without having that reciprocal support. When we do some of that work, which can be, within one session, things can radically change, then the need for that can disappear. And, you know, that it can be as simple as having, for instance, like a virus like the flu or, you know, even COVID, a virus that comes along and knocks you for six. That virus is immediately giving you the chance to stop what you're doing, cancel work, cancel all engagements and go to bed. Guaranteed, you are run down, exhausted, overwhelmed, overworked, saying yes to things you didn't want to be saying yes to in the lead up to getting sick. And that virus has given you an opportunity to actually give yourself what you really needed to have before you got sick. And if you give yourself that before you get sick, if you see the signs, the whispers, and listen to the whispers of your body before you actually get sick and do all the things to support yourself that your body is actually asking for, then you don't get that illness. You don't need it, because you don't need to be brought to your knees to stop and listen and to rest, because you've given yourself the rest in advance. So it never arises. It never arrives. We have so much power. I've literally seen that in my household in the last few days. My partner is like really unwell right now. He doesn't listen to me very much when it comes to my work, but that's okay. I still love him anyway. but I've seen that. You know, last week I felt just a little bit funky, right? And so I had a day where it wasn't my work day Friday, so I had Friday already set aside. I already had a massage booked in. Thank you, past me 3 weeks ago, for booking that massage in. It was perfectly timed. And I went, you know what? I'm going to wipe the rest of the day out for all the other errands I was going to run around and do. And I'm going to have that massage, and I'm going to come home and I'm going to hop into my infrared sauna blankets, and I'm going to have an infrared sauna. I'm going to have a nap. I'm going to lay in the sun for a little bit because I need some vitamin D. And I'm just going to have a day where I drink heaps of water, I nourish myself, and I just have this beautiful rest. And then I had an Epsom salt bath at the end of the day. And I felt amazing. By Saturday morning when I woke up, I was like, oh my God, I feel superhuman today. And yet the few days before that, I didn't feel brilliant. But I gave myself what I needed, and I didn't need to get unwell. My partner, on the other hand, burnt his candle at both ends and went away for work and came back on death's door really, really unwell, because he felt run down but didn't do those things. There's no judgment on him at all, but it's a really great scientific experiment between the two of us, because, you know, we eat the same food and we have relatively similar lifestyles. But, you know, he made different choices and wasn't listening to his body in the same way. And so it's a really beautiful example. I'm not nagging him about that. Just want to be clear. But it's a beautiful example right there and then of how easy it can be when we start to listen to those signs.
Right.
We can prevent illness even having to happen in the first place.
Those signs and those niggles as well, like I think the more you are in tune with your intuition, then you can notice them, because sometimes they're like super, super subtle. You know, like I'm always like kind of like minutely looking at myself and just like and feeling it, because sometimes if I can feel that something's going on, sometimes it will be, especially if I think that maybe I'm coming down with a flu type thing, it starts with like a change of the taste in my mouth. Be like, hang on a minute, like things just taste a little bit different, you know, just like really, really minor things that maybe people wouldn't notice, or it'd be like, oh, why does it taste like, you know, I'll kind of wash it down with something, whereas I know that if something tastes funny, or if I smell something different, like a lot of the time if I'm on a bus, I can smell if someone's got flu. I think I've spoken to you before about like also smelling when I felt that people had, you know, like certain like shots and things like that, especially recently. But there's this kind of something that I can smell, that I can like, this smells like sickness. It smells like, almost like, for want of a better phrase, like it smells like snot. Like snot has a certain smell, you know, it's got this sorry, but I was trying to find something like, you know, flowering, beautiful, but it just has this kind of like, to me it has this like coldness. It has like a cold feel, and it has like a smell where you just like, there's that funkiness again. You know that someone's, you know, like, especially if they're like, because I don't have a car, so every now and again I still have to take public transport to make distances. And over the winter, you know, like getting on those is like, it's hard, you know, unless I'm like, you know, actually I can walk it. Like I'm better off like walking in the freezing than I am sitting in that sweat box where people don't want to open the window because they think they're going to get sick. It's just like a nasty environment. I didn't realize my sense of smell was so acute until, you know, over recent times where I'm like, I'm smelling something different here coming off someone. I suppose if I was a dog, they'd be training me and I'd be able to like hunt things out. But also just to go back to when we're talking about the part of you that doesn't want to heal, there were other things that came that I was thinking like, could it be this? Could it be this? Where the two things I'd written, sometimes when you're well, it's not just about not being seen by people who can then provide for you, give you care and all the attention that you've not had because you've been the person just doing and caring, you know, that like you said. But also when you let go of all of the things that bring you down, then the only way is up. And are you ready to go into that higher version of yourself, that well version of yourself, now that you don't have these things? You know, and I see this when I'm coaching where people are holding back with something like, why are you holding on to that? Because you came to me because you want to go here, but you're still not letting go of almost like an anchor around yourself, because when you let go of the things that are weighing you down, you know the saying, then you're able to go up. So when you release the unwellness, then you thrive. What are you going to be? How are you going to embody that energetic resonance of being like healthy and vibrant? And also with that are there instances of people making subconscious contracts? You know, if there's a genetic condition within the family, that if you then choose not to adopt that, then, you know, like sometimes are you taking that on so that you are connected to your family or your origins because they had it. So as a result, this is mine as well. You know, that's something that I had to face with myself, because I felt, because of the messaging I was told, that because mental illness was so strong in my family, that it was just a matter of time before, you know, the trigger went off and I was finished. And then I'd spend, you know, the remaining days of my life on psychiatric wards and drugs and everything. Like literally I was surrounded by people who told me that was going to happen. And up until a point I believed it as well, quite strongly, because one, I was living my life in such a different way. So that's crazy, right? Isn't it? You know, and just not buying into the thing. So I'm like, well, let me just kind of live my life in a way that, like, when, you know, when the toll comes and it is gone, at least I've like done crazy things and it was just a precursor to my craziness, until I started to understand that it actually wasn't part of it. So for a long time, it like hung over my head and I really believed it, because there were so many instances of it within my family that hung over my head until I was like, oh, actually, no, I don't have to do this. And when I started to make real radical shifts in diet and just mindset as well, as towards my late 30s, when I'm like, well, if I change these things, and there was more, I think because of the internet coming, there were like more examples of people who were in their 50s and 60s and 70s thriving and being in a completely different state of wellness in their latter years, than just kind of like getting to a point and going vroom and like falling off it. So as soon as I saw that, I'm like, well, it's as easy as me just making dietary changes, mindset changes, having expectation, letting go of me holding on to the idea of it's gonna hit me and it's gonna go downhill. But I can see how, and also not buying into the story, because there's still people who like very much believe that I'm a nutcase anyway, and I'm like verging on mental illness, you know, and there is like that I like, see, she's crazy, she's still doing what she did, you know, that. So it's like I'm like a functioning what they call it now, manic depressant, or I'm a functioning schizophrenic, and there are people in my family who truly 100% believe that I'm crazy, but I'm just managing to function at a level. And because I don't buy into that, then there's a sense of almost abandonment of the narrative, because I chose different. But it's taken a lot to do that, because it's, in order to do that, it's meant that I've had to literally physically separate and be out of the space of where I'm constantly in the space of defending my way of seeing the world. Like, I'm not crazy, I'm doing something different, this is what I'm doing. Whereas people who are not prepared to make that snip, you know, and separate, would stay in there, and as a result maybe would manifest that, because then that the manifestation of that keeps you surrounded and supported by the family, even if it's to the detriment of your own wellness as well. So, you know, I don't know how you want to respond to those, but
I absolutely honour you for making that choice, because it is a hard choice to make when you realise that you are the rainbow sheep of the family. You want to actually change the lineage. You want to change the narrative. You want to change the story that has been handed to you at birth by your family. And that's, you know, this is deep generational healing that you're talking about here. The stories that we cling to, the stories that we own as our own, are the ones that define the outcomes for us in our life and our health as we go through it. And so whatever stories you hold as yours can completely determine your health, as in they can be either a blessing or a curse. You can either be creating a future that isn't limited by your age and your health, or you're creating a future that has a predetermined outcome. You know, I know people who say, oh, well, you know, my mum and my auntie both had Alzheimer's, therefore I'm just accepting that it's going to happen for me, so we just need to plan for it. It's like, right. That's one of the worst things you can do. Yes, by all means, make great plans in your will and in your, you know, enduring power of attorney, all that sort of stuff. Great, have a living will. Awesome. But don't accept that that's going to be your future, because the second you accept that, you're creating a concrete pathway for your future. There is an infinite number of future pathways that are available to all of us at any time. And a very large part of what narrows us down to the one that we go down is our belief in which one is ours. As soon as we believe it, we go down that pathway. It's one of the reasons that I'm adamantly against diagnoses and us accepting a diagnosis, because a diagnosis is the health system equivalent of a curse. Once you accept it, it sends you down a pathway of a prognosis that's attached to that diagnosis and what everyone else has ever experienced. And it takes so much work to free yourself from that. You know, when we go to, you know, support groups for a particular diagnosis, we go onto all of the forums and the Facebook groups for all the people who are suffering from it and listen to all of their horror stories of what's to come for me. That becomes my future, and it comes crashing in on me really fast, and it rapidly accelerates my illness. Yeah. And so when we choose to separate ourselves from that in the way that you've separated yourself from your family, your lineage, and your generational trauma, what that does is it gives us suddenly the ability to have a different future, to choose a different pathway. If we accept it as ours, we can't choose anymore. We've chosen it. We've chosen that as ours. And so, you know, the person I know that's talking about Alzheimer's has chosen that pathway. And so, yeah, it's probably going to come crashing in on her sometime soon. You know, and that's horrendous. If anybody has ever seen anyone go through Alzheimer's as an end-of-life disease, it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal, right? And so to wish that on yourself, or to accept the curse as yours and accept the story as yours, is creating a concrete pathway for yourself. And so, you know, I applaud you for choosing differently, because we all come in, and, you know, it's one of the first things you're asked when you go to a conventional health appointment, right, is, you know, your family history. You know, did your grandparents have glaucoma, diabetes, you know, heart disease, all of that stuff, right? And if we attach too strongly to that family history, we create those those issues in ourselves. We don't have them because of that family history. We have them because we accepted the family history was our story. It actually works the other way around. And that's not how conventional health sees it, but that's how I see it 100%. Because as soon as we choose differently, we rewrite our family history for our offspring. They no longer have the parent that had the thing. You know, we don't have to choose the breast cancer if it runs in the family. We can choose to be mindful. We can choose to monitor if we would like to. But if we live in fear of it happening because we believe it's inevitable and it's our destiny, then we're going to make it happen. Stress is one of the biggest causes of disease, 100%. So if we're stressing about that disease happening, it's going to happen. If you're stressing about schizophrenia, you're going to become schizophrenic because it's going to create those pathways within your brain. And if you've got a constant narrative being dumped on you by family that you're going to get this because of your genetics, then of course that's going to be what ends up being your pathway if you accept it as yours. And it's totally okay. You know, you have my permission and give yourself permission to not accept any story about you that you've ever been given by family, by a doctor, by a medical team, by any other health professional, by friends, by anyone ever in your life, ever, or in your history, in your past. Even you go to readers that read your past lives, those past life stories, feel free to reject all those stories. Because every one of them is defining how you are now, what you're experiencing right now, and what you're allowing yourself to experience in the future. You don't have to attach to any of them. And the sooner you detach from those stories, the sooner you create your own future. And it can be radically different to your family.
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, because like my story is like so different already, you know. But what you say about creating, so I think of one family member whose mother died of Alzheimer's. So, you know, I saw her deteriorate over 10 years where she was in a care system. And what became of her, like from being a very powerful, almost the kind of woman where you'd walk into the room, like the women in my family, very powerful energies, you know, very powerful energies. But yet something always happened to them around about the age of 15. Of course, they were dealing with things, but then so that meant that their last 30 years, so they always lived to get to their 80s, usually 80s, 90s, were just a decline into illness, and you know, there were a lot of things that didn't get dealt with and didn't get faced with, and I was just like, that's just not going to be me, you know. And I was going on absolute faith and just, you know, bravado basically, where I'm just like, that's not going to happen to me when I'm 50. It's not going to be that. And you know, I had to really fight against it, not just like verbally, but also internally, just going like, when I get to 50, it's going to be different. It's going to be different. And from there on, those next 30, 40, 50 years of my life, whatever I've got left, are going to be a completely different story. I'm not going to descend into decrepitude. I'm not going to be a burden on myself. I'm not going to be trapped in my own body. It's going to be completely different things. So when I had my 50th birthday, I was like, I made it. Oh my God. It was such a, like, I can't believe it. And unfortunately, many of the women that I always used to have to stand up against, you know, who were giving me this diagnosis, are just not here for me to go see. I told you it could be different. It's going to be different. And like you said, if you accept something, so the daughter of my aunt who passed from Alzheimer's, when she worked away for 20 odd years of her life as a pharmacist, ironically, and then when she came back to the UK and bought a property, when I went to see her, I was like shocked that she'd bought a flat within a nursing home, and she was 60 at the time. And so when I went to see her, like, you see this building and it's like a kind of like, you know, all flats and things. And it didn't really occur to me that it was like a nursing home with lots of flat units, like separate units within it, until I got in there and saw that there was like a downstairs area with sitting rooms. And there were like all these women there with white hair, and they were like at least like 75, 80 years old. And I'm like, but she's 60. She's literally just retired. Why are you like buying a place here? And over the ensuing 10 years, there was like a rapid decline in her mental health, to the point when I went to see, you know, one of the times when I went to see her again, I was surprised that this was even the same person. And really, you know, and my heart was just like, seeing the power of everything that you've said is like, if you accept it, because I think she'd seen my mom, and then she'd seen other women kind of take on a mindset of, this is in the family, this is where we go. And then deciding that, that's her fate. So the best thing she can do is already like set up her home within a care facility. So as her health declines, at least she's got people on the end of a bell that she can pull in. It manifested itself hard. It's frightening how real this is. And even then, talking about when women get diagnosis or assume that because breast cancer has been in their family, then they elect to have mastectomies. That's one of the things that just like literally will remove the breath from my body, to take that on, to believe that that's the best thing to do to stop you from doing that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what happens after that. Does that help you not have breast cancer that you believe is genetic because you've removed your breasts?
It's interesting because I received a letter from our government health department strongly recommending that I have a double mastectomy and oophorectomy, which is removal of ovaries, because of my past medical history, my family's past medical history. Right. So, I've been in that position where I get this horrendous fear-inducing letter. And I remember at the time, I'm like, I just got angry. I just got really angry. So like, how dare they make this recommendation? And at the time, I was well and truly in childbearing years. And so they were recommending I take out my ovaries and have both my breasts removed because of my risk factors.
Yeah.
And I was like, how many other women have they sent this to who don't know they have a choice, who don't know that that's not necessarily going to stop their body experiencing disease. And in fact, it may cause more problems than anything else, because, one of the things they often do in a double mastectomy is immediately put in silicone implants, which can poison your body, right? I know so many people that are struggling with silicone implants right now who have so much autoimmune illness in their body as a result of these implants being somewhere, because the body, it's not the body that's there, right? It's something else. And so the body reacts to that with constant inflammation and constant, discord within the body. And so disease. And so, yeah, I had to make that decision. And I got really angry, and I actually took a photo of it and put it on my social media and said, just simply circling around it, saying, this is what this is what has been recommended. How would you feel as a woman in childbearing years receiving this letter? And the response was overwhelming in two camps. One was, oh my God, I'm so sorry, you have to go through this. Oh my God, the real sympathy, which, that's humans. I completely get that. The other was anger, like sheer unbridled feminine anger at the health system, the health department, for making this a standard practice, that they would send a letter out like this with no counselling. Right. And no offer of any conversation with a human to say you need to have your breasts and ovaries removed or you might die, which is essentially what this letter said. And I'm just like, if that, I don't know, am I allowed to swear on your podcast?
Do what you need to do with something.
Oh, fuck that. There you go. Thank you.
Like, imagine, like, the thought of it, like I said, that's never, because obviously I had different, the path was going to go a different way. But then the whole idea of imagining that is, that's a solution, and not to even mention the fact that like your ovaries and your breasts are what make you a woman. Like there's more to being a woman, but like physically, like men don't have breasts. Well, if they're being well, they shouldn't do. But it's something about this sensuality, and like you're removing your own sensuality to then survive. And like, are they going to then deal with the trauma of the surgery, and then a woman looking at her body? Like, what if she then chooses not to have silicone implants? Or I can't even imagine, I can't even think. And also because it gets so publicized, there's always like a celebrity or two that are doing the thing that will help to kind of normalize it. And I think the last one was Angelina Jolie. So, you know, you've got someone who is, everyone thinks is a hot woman. You know, she's like up there with, ranked as like, apparently she's like one of the most beautiful women in the world. So it's like, look, it can even happen to Angelina Jolie, you know, who's got like the hot, like Hollywood husband and like the hot body and everything's beautiful. But even she will do this, and that will then just reinforce the idea that it's a thing to do, you know, to a woman who's like, well, what am I going to do? Oh, well, you know, beautiful woman like this did it. And she's then, but we don't know ultimately as well, because I'm just suspicious of these things, that we don't know that she's done that. Has she really had that? Or is this just like a helpful way to reinforce an idea and keep women doing something like this? Because I'm sure once you've had that kind of surgery, that it's not just like done and dusted, you know, you're a customer for life. I'm just like horrified that the choices are made, but I know that it gets made so frequently as a way of staying safe and away from this, and to take away the very things about you that are your womanhood.
And perfectly healthy functioning organs that have no problems,
right,
that have no evidence of cancer, that are healthy and otherwise supporting your body. You know, you go through, if you have your ovaries removed, you go through forced menopause, like very rapid onset forced menopause, right? And you know, there was no mention of the side effects. I'm sure that it would come up when you go and book it in with the doctor and follow up with the appointment that they offered to go and have this procedure done. These surgeries were literally invented during World War II by Nazi doctors, right? You know, through unconsenting, horrendous, horrific situations with people who were not patients, so that they could experiment. Yeah. And our government is now saying that's normal practice and standard practice. And I do believe a lot of those celebrity endorsements may well be paid promotions. Who knows? We don't know, because we're not there. We're not looking. We're not actually in the room to see if it's actually happening. All we do is trust the media, and the media is not very trustworthy in general. But the other thing that's mind-boggling to me is that there's nothing in this type of communication about the other ways to support your body to not create cancer, because cancer doesn't come from outside of us. Cancer comes from within us. It's our own body mutating in a way, and our immune system deals with that every day, right? We always have precancerous cells that our body goes, oh, hello, you're not supposed to be here, and, you know, recycles, processes, and redistributes those parts of cells out so that it isn't a problem. It doesn't grow into anything, and it isn't even, you know, perceptible on testing. Our immune system knows what to do. So when something's out of balance, our immune system doesn't pick it up. That part of our body, our own body, creates something that can kill us. And so, you know, if we just go around cutting off really healthy organs and not dealing with the reasons why cancer shows up, then we're not going to prevent cancer from forming somewhere else. We're not going to prevent health issues from going deeper. If we continue living the life we're living that creates the cancer in our body, even if we cut off the cancer and go, there you go, you're cured because the cancer's been cut off. If we continue living in the way that created the cancer in the first place, it's going to go somewhere else. It's going to show up elsewhere. And, you know, it's going to metastasize. It's going to do other things, or it's going to show up in another kind of health problem that's going to try and get your attention, because your body is always communicating with you through health conditions. It's asking for your support. Your body's always supporting you, but sometimes it needs your support in response. And when you have cancer, it's a part of your body. One of the things I really hate is the hating on cancer campaign. I completely understand it, having lost family members and friends to cancer. I understand it, but hating on the part of your body that needs love and healing and acceptance and support isn't going to make it go away. Hating on that part of your body is one of the reasons why it showed up. And so creating a big campaign of hate isn't going to solve the problem of cancer. I mean, creating a big campaign of love and light's probably not going to solve it either, but perhaps creating a campaign about, you know, what actually created the cancer in your body. Let's go back to when it started. Let's work on that. Let's look at all the rest of your life, because cancer is a real knock on the crown to say, hey, it's a wake-up call. Your soul is calling you to look at every part of your life and choose again. Every single part of your life. Look at everything from, laundry detergent to partner relationships, to intimacy, to relationships with children, to choices in your career, to how you talk to yourself inside your mind, to what you see when you look in a mirror, all of it, how you honor yourself with food and drink, all of it. You get to choose all of it again. And when you do, you have the power to completely shift what your body is experiencing and have what I see all the time in my work, which is the miracle remissions and the miracle tumours disappearing and doctors going, I don't know why it's gone. Maybe we should just take your uterus out anyway, just in case. It's like, no, there's no tumour in there anymore. There's no need to take the uterus out, right? Cancel the surgery.
Oh my God, I laugh.
They don't know how to deal with it.
It's the least part of funny, but it's just like so prevalent, and and especially the fear. Like, obviously we've just come out of this, like, the massive fear campaign of the last 3 years, and I have these moments where I'm just looking around and go, how is everyone really? Especially the people that haven't really thought about what happened, or have just like, oh, we're back to normal now, and we're like pushed down that whole 2-3 year period where everyone the fear was off the charts. Fear alert was like, I don't know if I've ever seen it that bad. I've never lived through, like warfare or anything like that. So I don't know how that looks like and what that feels like on a day-to-day basis. How it manifested in me was just like untold amounts of frustration, untold amounts of incredulity, when I'm just like, when you're talking about the media, I'm like, how much bullshit are you going to keep pouring into people and scaring the life out of them so they're not able to make their choices? Or how long are you going to keep misinforming people about the miracle of their bodies and the miracle of belief? Like, we're talking about all of these things. If you understand and believe what is happening, then you can look at something and go, I don't know, I'm not really playing the game of that, because in my mind, I've just felt very removed from the whole thing. It was like playing off, and of course I'm in the middle of all the conditions and everything that they're doing to kind of keep everyone safe. But I was like managing so much frustration with what was coming out, why people weren't questioning anymore. And I had to like really keep checking myself that frustration and anger didn't kind of turn into too much lashing out, because that wasn't really going to help anyone or me. And it took a while for it to get to the point where I'm like, let me just have compassion for the people who are in that fear state, because they're disconnected from their intuition. It's because they're disconnected from their bodies and understand the way that their bodies work, or have never really kind of tracked why things happen, or feeling something happening, catching it before it goes any further, or have just been in a state where they're just really for one of a less cheesier phrase, but not in their power about the world that they live in and the autonomy that they have about what it is they can choose to do. Just because somebody says that this is good for you, does it always mean that? Or you can say, no, I don't want to do that. It can just be as simple as no. How are you seeing people like readjust to the world as it is now? Because it's not the same. There's all of this stuff, and then there's kind of threats of it. We're going to have like round 2 or 3 or 4, depending on where you live. It depends what episode you're in of the whole thing. How have you seen that come in clients of yours that you've treated, or maybe people who are taking your course to become medical intuitives, to be able to spread the message of connecting with your intuition, so that the next time any game like that tries to be pushed on society, people can go, actually, no, that's not the way that the body works, or that's not the way I'm going to receive this. How has that shifted for you the past 3 years, and how's it changed your work?
Oh, it's been amazing, to be honest, in a real eye-opening way. I've had, because of the type of work I do and because of my background as a health professional, and because I teach something that is let's just say, not governed by the same governing bodies that conventional health is governed by, right? It's a whole profession that you can have autonomy in. And you're not wasting and losing all of that training you've had before and all that experience you've had before. You can actually combine it. I've got, lots of doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, other health professionals within the Medical Intuition Practitioner training that I run. And, there's plenty of people who aren't those as well. So there's a balance of about 50-50. It's quite fascinating. But what I've found is that there's a lot of trauma in people from the last 3 years. There's a lot of trauma that's showing up in different ways. Those who have been forced to do something to their body that they didn't want to do in order to put a roof over their heads and feed their family. Those who have been shamed and humiliated and made to leave their profession. And they're very skilled, highly experienced professionals that were made to leave their profession, particularly in the medical profession. And they were publicly humiliated, many of them deregistered and, stamped out of the building because they chose to say, but my experience says this isn't the case. Research is showing this isn't the case. I don't understand why no one's listening to science, like actual science. They had the courage, and it takes great courage to say that in a health setting where that kind of free thinking wasn't welcome. They are deeply traumatized. And there are those who have stayed within the system and had to cave on their own beliefs to be able to stay within the system, to keep trying to do good work in the world and to keep some sane heads on shoulders within the health system to help mentor the younger medical professionals coming through. And so I've spoken to all of them as well. But there are also those who have lockdown trauma, and that's showing up with health issues too, right? And particularly what I found, a lot of really young people who were, perhaps going through the end of high school, going through teenage years, early 20s, when they should be out partying, they should be out with their friends, having a normal life. They, and there's no real, we're not entitled to have a normal life. There's no guarantee that we're all going to have the exact same life our parents had. But they've not been given any coaching. They've not been given any counselling. They've not been given any support in surviving and then trying to assimilate back into a world that says, oh, no, you're all good now. You can go do the thing we stopped you from doing for 3 years and sent you down a deep, dark tunnel of depression, and some of your friends committed suicide over. That's all good. You go straight back to normal because actually, it's fine. There's no threat. In fact, there never was a threat. And most of them, if they've got their head screwed on, can see that. And that makes it worse because they've lost loved ones over something that shouldn't have happened. And so there's deep psychological trauma there that's eventuating into health problems, that's creating, immune system issues, creating autoimmune conditions, creating depression, creating mental health issues. And, that's had this huge roll-on effect. And so, there's trauma in so many different forms. And, even the people who did go down the pathway of believing the narrative and then had to deal with some really unpleasant consequences. I've had so many people reach out to me saying that they've had, vaccine injuries or, they've had other issues that have happened or long COVID. Haven't as yet met someone who's had long COVID that wasn't vaccinated. So I'm very curious if any of your listeners are listening. They're welcome to reach out to me and let me know their story, because so far when I've asked everyone who has long COVID, so I see it as like a post-vaccine, post-viral syndrome. And so I'm totally open to seeing it in a different way. I'm curious. That's all. I'm totally curious about it because it's an interesting eventuation that is not happening in those populations of people that I've seen that haven't had that medicine. But it's, that there's so many people reaching out saying they're having these health issues and they can't do anything to get rid of them. Their doctor has no idea what to do. They've tried a lot of things. Nothing is working and they're at their wit's end. They've spent all their money. They can't work. They can't pay for medical treatments. But the conventional system that, here is free, they're not getting any answers. They're not getting any support. All they're getting is medication for their symptoms to suppress some of their symptoms. And even then, they're not able to function enough to be able to go back to any normal life or have a job or provide for their families. And there's a huge number of them that have reached out to me. And so, the effects have been huge. And I know, a lot of people go, oh, maybe we need a war, it'll sort everybody out. But, it really was like that for a lot of people. There was a lot of people who felt deeply afraid for their safety. A lot of people who felt deeply confronted by what they were seeing around them, deeply confronted by those who they trusted turning on them, deeply confronted by having everything they knew and everything that was stable in their life ripped out from underneath them.
Right.
Without them being able to do anything to stop it. And without anyone really seeing it coming in the way that it did, with the political decisions that were made. And you know what's happened here in Australia. There's been some really weird experiments with political decisions in each state. So it's been a really interesting thing to witness unfolding and, be a part of. I'm part of the experiment here. But I am seeing health issues, and I'm seeing a lot of that that's going to last, right? It's going to have a long-lasting effect. And those who have lost family members because of, the way things have unfolded over the last 3 years, those who have lost loved ones and friends, they are the most deeply affected, because often they've had the veil removed, whether they believed what was happening or not. Now they can see something wasn't right. They can now see that what they believed was true, and the people they trusted, the media, the government, were not there to be trusted, and perhaps never have been. And that's deeply unsettling for a lot of people.
Lack of safety in and like you say, everything. And I think that's maybe where some of the resistance came from, even with the evidence, when evidence was just piling up in the opposite way, that there were people who were standing firm on what they believed. And it, like I said, sometimes it was really frustrating to try and get that message across. But then ultimately it came to compassion, because it's like the minute you admit that is true, then you have to deal with the fallout of everything. The fallout of the dangers that you could potentially face, or the people around you could potentially face because of the decisions they made, but also the fallout of daddy government isn't there for you. The media don't care about you. That's a hard thing to take. It's like, well, can I trust anything? Can I question anything? And that's a really fearful place to be in, like really shaky ground for people to be in when they've relied on these things to be, that's the source of news, and that's the source of like making sure everything's all right with us, when it was anything but that. So I get it, which is why, like I said, like eventually I got to the point of it becoming compassion. But there was a lot of frustration, a good year or so of just frustration, and then just disbelief. I'm like, how can you possibly just go on mainstream media and just lie to millions of people like that without blinking? How bad have things got? And knowing that people are just like lapping up everything that you're saying, just not going and sleeping at night. And then when you're done, it's like, oh, well, my job's over, and I'm going to go off and kind of like put myself in some other like hidden part of government, or just get, whatever it was. But it really just, I was disbelieving of these people anyway, but I'd never seen it got to this level where it was just like constant daily for well over a year. And then it's still, there's still tendrils of it coming back, because then I see people are walking around thinking it's coming back, wearing the mask again, wearing the gloves again and everything. How can people start to feel into their intuition, start to feel into their truth about their wellness and their body, especially when, it's possible that there may be other things coming up, and we need to be sure that we can believe that we're in our bodies, so we know what our body wants and is feeling.
Yeah, I love that. So, one of the best things you can start to do is to start to trust your body. So your body is built in the most spectacular way. It is an incredible, intricate machine that knows what it's doing and is trying very hard to support you. If you are feeling pain and you're in discomfort and you're suffering right now, your body is actually still trying really hard to support you, but it needs some support back to be able to do that. It needs you to listen and it needs you to respond to what it's asking of you. But your body knows what it needs in order to heal. If you start to listen to it, start to listen to the whispers, and if you are experiencing health issues, think back to when they started. What were you going through at the time? What was life throwing at you at the time that they started? What was it that was upsetting you? What were you pushing yourself to do that you didn't want to do? What were you stretching yourself out of your comfort zone to do? What were you holding yourself back from that you really, really wanted to do? Where were you allowing others to trample over your boundaries? Where were you not honoring yourself? Question, get your journal out, do some writing about that time, because that's going to be where your answers are for healing your body now. Mm-hmm. And if you can't get to that, there are people out there who can help you figure out what it is that you need to be working on right now to help you heal your body. But beginning to listen to those whispers of your body and responding to them. If you're tired, don't have a coffee. If you're tired, have a nap, right? It's the opposite. Don't do the thing that just silences your body and shuts it down. Do the thing that actually answers what it's asking of you, you know. And I'm all for medication to help support us with our symptoms, because sometimes they are overwhelming. Medication can be just as spiritual as meditation, but it depends how we see it. And, you know, if you've got the headache, by all means, take the paracetamol, but then do the work on why the headache showed up, make the changes, and then it'll be gone when the paracetamol's worn off and you won't need it again. It won't happen again. Don't just suppress the symptoms, because that's your body's communication with you. It's asking for help. It's asking for support so that it can support you in return. And so when you start creating that reciprocal conversation with your body, then you can start to trust it more and more and more. And you'll get to understand your own intuitive yes and no. So you can feel in your body what feels like a yes and what feels like a no, right? Yes feels really expansive. No feels quite contractive. All you have to do is feel into something you really don't want to do and feel how you pull away from it. You know, and for me, that might be like, I went to the dentist last week and it wasn't my normal dentist and it was a horrific experience. It was like, oh, you know, I don't want to go there again. It was just one of those checkups and cleans, but oh my God, I had to do a lot of tapping afterwards. But that, you know, that's the no, right? If you are looking at a decision, something you need to make a decision around your health, around your body, or around what's going on in the media, something they're telling you, feel into if for you on the inside it feels contractive or if it feels expansive. You'll know the truth. Your body will tell you the truth, because your body is a compass for guidance. It's deeply connected to your intuition. And so allow your body to guide you and listen to it, respond to it, take action based on what it says to you. If your body says no, don't do it. Cancel the thing. Don't do the thing. Whatever the thing is, don't do it. If you've got something booked in, you know, to catch up with a friend and you think about it and go, oh, I just don't want to do that. I don't want to see that person. There's such an energy drain. Cancel the thing. You know, use someone else as an excuse if you have to, but you're entitled to say no to something that does not serve you. You know, all through the last 3 years, I've been advocating for people to have choice. And, you know, only you know your health history, your risk factors, and your own principles that you live by. And it's only you that has the right to choose what goes in or out of your body. And no one else can make that choice for you. If whatever you choose to put in your body is in alignment with your principles, your values, and your own health history and risk factors, then great. You've made the right decision for your body, and it's probably not going to be a problem for you. But if what you're putting into your body is not in alignment with that, or you felt an intuitive no when you went there, or you were completely oblivious and just did it because you were told, then there's every chance that it's not in alignment with your body and it's going to create problems within you. So listen to your body. Get to know what it's saying to you. Start to take action to meet your needs before your health brings you crashing down to your knees, because your body is going to get louder and louder and louder until you listen. Your health issues are going to go deeper and deeper and deeper until you listen. In the same way that, you know, if you cut your breasts off to prevent breast cancer, if you continue living a life that was going to create breast cancer and you don't have any breast tissue, that health problem is going to go somewhere else to try and bring you to your knees, to stop you, to make new choices. It will show up somewhere else because you're still living in the life that creates the illness. Explore, listen, and reflect and take action on what your body is saying to you. Create that conversation pathway because it changes everything when you do. It allows you to take true radical control of your own health and of your own life, and everything else improves because our health isn't separate to the rest of our life, right? When we change our relationships because they're not serving our health, our relationships improve. When we change our job because it's creating illness in our body, our enjoyment in our work radically shifts. And so your whole life becomes the life you want to create, not just your health. It's not just about your body. It's about everything. It's about everything. Your health is not separate from the rest of your life. And so if you're wondering why life isn't showing up the way you want it to, and you've got these health issues, pull on the thread for your health issues. Find the real root cause and why it's showing up for you and what you're being asked to choose again. And that will shift everything else in your life.
Thank you so much, Emma. Can you just let everyone know where they can find you and what you've got coming up if you've got some new things?
Yeah, for sure. So you can find me at medicalintuitionschool.com, and you can find out about the courses that I've run in the past and new courses that are coming. So I am about to open enrollments for Medical Intuition Practitioner training for looking at March 2024, so early next year. And I've currently got Upgrade Your Health running. We only just started today, so it's not too late to join. It's the most amazing program. So it's a mastermind style program. So it's weekly live calls on Zoom where I read your body live on the call and we work out what you need to do right now this week to start to shift your health. And we do this together over 8 weeks of weekly live calls. So it's a group experience, and today's call was so much fun and so deep and juicy, and it was just mind-blowing for everybody there. It was so good because, of course, it was spot on, exactly what they needed. Right. So it's going to radically change people's lives. So it's like working with me one-to-one, but at a much lower price point. You get to join in and you get to have huge shifts in your health. And have my support over an extended period of time with lots of one-to-one time within the group program. So that's called Upgrade Your Health. And so there's still time to join me on that as well. I run courses from time to time. So follow me on social media. You'll find me at Emma Turton Health on Facebook and emmaturton.medicalintuition on Instagram. So you can follow me over there. But you'll find out so much more about all my courses. I often drop them on social media and my email list first because I'm an intuitively guided person. So they land, I let them out to the world and I say, hey, I've got this new thing that just literally came today. So who's in, and then I slowly do the tech side at the background because tech's not my zone of genius and put it on my website. So follow me from my website, follow me on social media, and you'll hear about all my upcoming events and things. And you can work with me one-to-one if that's more your jam as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this. So much juiciness, so much gold. Amazing. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much, Carol. It's been such a beautiful conversation. I've really, really enjoyed today. We've gone so deep and on so many beautiful topics that are so relevant to right now for so many people. So thank you.
Thank you, Emma, for sharing your wisdom on this episode. Thank you for listening. And just to remind you, Your Awakened Voice is released this week. There are links to the course and also links to Higher Energetic Resonance Inspirations podcast and mailing list, all of those in the show notes. Also, this message is for you if you know there's a purpose to your life and you're ready to turn it into a breathtaking reality. My purpose is to help you make it happen. So if you're ready to take the next step in your transformation, if you want to go there with support, accountability, radical honesty, contact me to find out about my Higher Energetic Resonance one-to-one spiritual life coaching program. Find me on my website, carolmaywhittick.com, CarolMayWhittick.com, Carol May Whittick on Facebook and LinkedIn, Casmic, CAZMICK on Instagram. Have an amazing week. Until the next episode, take care. Thank you.